Come on. There you go, see? That's not so bad. Rest against the rocks. Let them hold you down. And then push for the bank. It's not far now. Not far. There you go, you're so close. And unfortunately, that's as much as we can see. Oh, no, you're going the wrong way, you silly twit. Obviously, they can't get up there. It's horrible to watch. It's very hard to watch. Haven't been any crocodile kills. In fact, we only saw one crocodile and it kind of drifted past the wildebeest. But watching them battle the currents, oh. And I know that for some of, for all of you actually, this isn't easy to watch. This battle that they have to go through. And I'm sorry for those of you for whom this is really upsetting. Oh, Bumba Girl, exactly. What a horrible place to cross. Less chance of crocodiles, but at the same time, this fierce, fierce current. And whilst this might have been okay about a week ago, since we've had that huge storm, the Mara River is still flowing very powerfully, and these rocks are vicious. This actually probably would have been a perfect place to cross a week ago. They could see the rocks, they could navigate them, but now the little one's caught up in the current. Oh, why didn't you cross where the others were crossing? This crossing has just become really hard to watch. The others were doing fine. They were just that little bit upstream and they were managing. But now these wildebeest have got caught up in the crush. They've taken the wrong line. Oh, you silly creatures. Oh, this has become really horrible. Watching them earlier was actually really quite enjoyable because not one of them got killed. They were all making it to the other side. Now all of a sudden one wildebeest has led them wrong and they're just not strong enough to fight the current. And they're panicking and they're getting stuck. They're finding themselves in places where they can't cross. Valiant struggle. I really wanted to show you a really nice crossing, actually. That's what we've been waiting for, but now all of a sudden this has become... Oh. It's every wildebeest for themselves. I was spork in the road, having watched the poor calves struggling to get to the other side. You want to know if this is the first crossing for them? No, I don't think so. I think this would probably be at least their second. Oh, look, it made it back onto the other side. Oh, you clever little mite, but now you've got to start again from scratch. That's the one that was stuck that couldn't get up out of on the right. Well done, little one. It swam all the way back to start again. So no, this is not their first crossing. They already would have crossed the Mara River at least once, or if they've come from Tanzania on the western side, then they would have had to cross several rivers in that area as well. So it wouldn't be their first river crossing, I wouldn't have thought. Oh, but what a terrible place to have chosen. Absolute chaos now. Sheer panic has set in. They were doing so well. Where that dead wildebeest is on the right, that was where they were crossing earlier. And they were forging ahead. But now, it's just littered with drowned wildebeest. Oh no, now they're being swept even further downstream. Individuals clutching onto rocks. This is horrible. Richard, yes, canoes can swim. They swim quite strongly. I've watched them swim across there. Look, there's a swimming one. That little calf swimming. I'm just going to go forward. I know it's a risk because of our signal, but I have to see how they're going to get out of this. It is a risk. Oh, I don't want to go any further. How are we doing, Lou? Are we okay? Good. That's as far as I think I'm going to risk it. Oh, I don't think we're even going to see how they're going to get out the other side. This is terrible. It went from the most peaceful crossing I've witnessed, where the vast majority were making it safely across, to now I'm assuming those of you for whom this is too difficult to watch, I assume you've already turned off. I know it's all part of the great circle of life and everything. It doesn't make it pleasant. No, there's no point in struggling back up there. You can't get out there. I think this is getting a bit much, everyone. I think we're probably going to leave this sighting now and let the wildebeest make their way across in peace. Let's go across to something much more cheerful in Djuma, little Thamba.
Sure, that sounds like an absolute epic crossing that you've just witnessed there in the Mara. Back here in South Africa, we have some movement from Thamba. Now, he's been yawning quite a lot, which tends to suggest he's trying to get oxygen into his bloodstream, so it's oxygenating his muscles, and that's going to be ready for him to get up and move. I'm just hoping he's not going to go south, because at the moment he's on the property that we can't go onto, so we need to everybody will him to come this way. So if everyone collectively thinks go north, it might work. So as I said before, leopards are so elusive, and we are really learning about leopard behaviour, and you guys are actually learning with us. So it could well be, I think Tristan put quite a good argument forward, that Tandy has not been in as far into the Djuma area as she has done today, and it could well be that she's come into a false estrus to try and sort of align herself with the big male in the area, and that makes a lot of sense to me, and I think that's a good argument for what's been going on. So it could be that she doesn't fall pregnant from that encounter, or it could be that this little boy is actually becoming independent and actually it is a true estrus. So it's certainly going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. But generally speaking, what we have known in the past is that females will go and mate once the offspring has left. But as we learnt today and in the past, sometimes it doesn't work like that. Okay. So there's another vehicle that's just joined us. Pisces Bobby, definitely a gorgeous kitty cat, and he is beautiful. I can see he's actually got the markings like Mishu, his half brother. He's about 3 years old. So we've just had a vehicle pull in to the sighting, so we're just taking them off camera for you because we are live at the end of the day, so we just got to work around the other guys because obviously all the guests want to have a nice view of the animals as well. But I think they've pulled in now, so we can go back to him. But so his half brother Mishu had the little Y at the corner of his eyes. Hi Okay, Richard, and that is a question that we'd all like the answer to. How many leopards are there in Africa? Because leopard are quite widespread, I think they've gone under the radar a little bit. I think people have overestimated leopard numbers quite dramatically, and there was actually a paper that came out last year that then questioned. I think there's going to be another vehicle. Oh, I think that might be a different sighting then, so I just might have to make space for somebody to come in. So, as I say, it is difficult because they are just so elusive. So it has been difficult to count them, but now with technology, with camera traps and things like that, as I've been using in my own research, we've actually been able to shed light on the fact that perhaps there's not as many leopards as what people think. They actually think now that they've been reduced from about 70% of their original range. Now that's a huge amount of decrease. There we go. He's up and moving. No, wrong way, come this way. Thamba, come here. I don't want you to go that way. They always say don't work with children and animals, and this is exactly why. They don't do what you ask them to. Look at that. And gone. And that's exactly why it's so difficult to know exactly how many leopards there are, because 1 minute they're there and next minute they're gone, and if they don't want to be seen, you will not see a leopard. I am so chuffed we got a chance to see him though, but I think he is going to carry on south. I had that inkling that that's what he was going to do. He kept looking off into that direction, but magic to see him, and I'm glad you guys got to see him as well. So we've seen another member of Karula's clan, if you like, Tandy obviously being Karula's first cub and Thamba's mother. So really amazing to see some of those patterns crossing down. So we're going to head back towards Twin Dams. So I think Tristan is still hot on the trail. I really hope Tristan finds these lions, because he has put so much work in to finding them today. So really, fingers crossed. I think he really deserves to see those lions, and you guys do too. So he's going to give you an update on what he's found so far. Good luck, Tristan.
Well, thank you, Tara. I hope that we do see them too. So far, no real signs coming out of this block, and I tried to follow the tracks that we had, but it gets so thick, as you can see over here. This is what it looks like all the way down, and it is literally impossible for us to get a vehicle anywhere in there. So even if we find them in this, it's going to be almost a sort of bittersweet moment, because we're not going to be able to get anywhere near them. So I was hoping that we'd come here to the dam and that they would be out and about on the dam wall, but alas, I don't see anything. Now, funny enough, the first time I ever saw an Nkuhuma female was here at this dam, which sounds strange, but it was when I was at Chitwa, and I came on a afternoon game drive with some of the people from Djuma, and we found one of the Matimbas and Nkuhuma actually sitting here at the dam. So that was the first time that I managed to see them, so I was hoping a little bit of a repeat performance to see them here. And funnily enough, I actually haven't seen a cat at Buffelshoek Dam yet. What there is at Buffelshoek Dam, which is our obligatory hippos, they're having a pretty much normal time in the water. They're bobbing about, and heads are underwater as per normal with these two. They don't really get up to too much, and they're waiting for the sun to go down before they decide to start actually moving properly. So I don't expect too much energy from these guys just yet. I'm hoping that maybe if we sit for long enough, we might get a yawn out of one of them. At least we've got a bit of a spray of water. That's at least a little bit of activity. And that's the male that's on the left that we can see there, and the one on the right doesn't look nearly as large, so I wonder if it's not a female that he's got here in his thing, or it could be a young male. Now, if both of these are not territorial and there's no females around, you'll find that they actually can be quite tolerant of one another. It's often reported that hippos tend to go after each other, particularly males, and they fight quite a bit, but when there's no females around, they're actually not too bad, especially in a space like this where there's quite a bit of water that they can move around. Interestingly enough, they're right next to one another, so we'll see now when they pop up, because the one should pop up right in front of the other one. There we go. Now, I was hoping we were going to get a nice call, because he grunted the sort of start of his call, but we didn't get a follow-up from there. I love a hippo call. It's one of my favorite things, and it's one of those sounds that is synonymous with Africa. When you hear those hippos calling, you know that you're in somewhere in Africa, and generally in a very beautiful part of Africa, because it's normally a waterway of some sort. And particularly when I worked down at Lion Sands on the Sabi River, I used to hear them every night, and it was my favorite sort of soundtrack to go to sleep to. I suppose at Chitwa I used to hear them all the time too, because they were all in the dam in front as well. So, Machine Gun Nest, you think that hippos look like giant hamsters? I suppose they do a little bit, don't they? Minus the fur, but they are quite round and sort of short little legs and a little bit of a long face. So I would say that's fairly accurate. If we maybe we should stick some fur on one day and see how that looks. It'd be quite funny to have an oversized hamster running around. I think it would petrify most people. They also have a dental structure like rodents with massive teeth, although those are incisors on a rodent and not a canine like what we see here. Although these are incisors too. These are modified incisors that come out, so that actually is true. It would be quite funny to see a hairy hippo running around. Certainly would entertain me, that's for sure. But like I say, otherwise it's quite quiet. I thought we would see some terrapins. Actually, there are some terrapins on the other side. So to the left, Craig, by the pile of dung. There we go, straight in from there. So there's a whole bunch of terrapins that are getting the last of the afternoon sun. I thought we would see a few more of them straight behind the hippo. They often lie in that other area, but there are a couple of them. You see one's going back into the water. It's decided enough for the afternoon. It's time to head home, and back into the water they'll go. Now, the reason why they spend more time in water during the night is because of all the predators that are around. You'll find things like genets and civets and servals and caracals and wildcats and leopard and lion and hyena. These are all things that are going to be quite dangerous for a terrapin. So rather than spending time outside and having to worry about those things, as well as the temperature is going to drop drastically during the night, and that means as a small little reptile being in the water will hold its temperature a lot more than what being out on land would be. So what's happening here? Our hippo is doing a little dance under the water. You can see lots of ripples. What are you doing? I think he might have been rolling around under the water, because the water went a very odd wave structure that came out. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? They have the most incredible yawn. Lions are impressive when they yawn, but nothing beats a hippo's yawn, especially in light like this. Jacqueline, I think you hit the nail on the head. You've said that hippos remind you of submarines, the way that they lower themselves down slowly and then they just pop up with their eyes and their ears. It's almost like they are going down and then scoping out what's happening above land and sneaking up on things. So I think that's a perfect analogy when it comes to them. Although he's not doing a very good submarine impression right now by just shoving his head underwater and leaving the rest of his body out. He'll have to practice his maneuvering and trying to get himself right. But I can tell you one thing, it is really very peaceful here at Buffelshoek Dam. There might not be any lions lying on the dam wall and the hippos might be quite quiet, but it is so nice just to sit in the late afternoon and listen to the birds chirping and have the hippos sort of blowing water every now and then and just taking it all in. And there's such beautiful light being cast across the dam at the moment that it is a very pleasant way to spend one's afternoon, that's for sure. I'm just listening as well, just in case there is any alarm calls. It will be this time of the day that we were talking about it earlier, that cats might move around, and it's possible that we might see some sort of sign of the lions moving, and then, an alarm call from then. Now, I believe that Jamie Patterson in her fancy hat, maybe the wind has gotten up because she's now decided that she's going to start slowly maneuvering her way back to base camp. So let's go catch up with her before she gets home.
We're racing to make the gate closing time, but I just wanted to show you something kind of cool, because we've just watched the death and destruction of the river crossing, and I think it's the hardest part is watching them drown and stampede over each other. And just have a look at this. I mean, I can handle a crocodile and the lion kills, no problem, but there's something very difficult about it when they drown each other. However, it's important for us to remember that we're looking at this as humans, and we don't quite understand nature's scale. We look at it from a human perspective, from an individual perspective. And the proportion of those that die compared to those that live is so small. A drop in the metaphorical ocean of wildebeest. That is beautiful, Fergus. Most beautiful. But now it's time to go. You forgot what you needed? Yeah. That was a beautiful shot. Okay. Onwards we go. So while we speed back up towards the escarpment, the wildebeest actually smell quite nice, but Tara's got something that is really rather smelly.
Hi everybody, and I can totally understand where Jamie's coming from. It's always a heart-wrenching thing to see. But we do have some Waterbuck bulls here for you. Really impressive, and I haven't seen Waterbuck since I've been back. But they really are rather impressive. Look at those horns. And you can see the ridges really nicely on those horns. Now when they actually fight, they could slip and injure each other, and that's not the whole point of fighting. The fighting is actually to test each other's strength. So those ridges on the horn actually stop the horns from slipping. So when they are fighting, they can interlock, and then they can really put the strength to the test. And you'll find that on many of the antelope species if you look carefully enough, but they're really quite prominent on the Waterbuck. Yeah, hello. Beautiful. And you can see that long mane there as well. Males, because they have an oil that helps to waterproof that fur, because as the name suggests, they do hang around water quite a lot, and they'll quite often go into water to get away from predators. Hi, Paula. Paula just asking about Waterbuck and why they smell so much. Now I'm just going to try and move back. We might be able to get another view of these Waterbuck as the sun's going down. That beautiful golden hour light. Let me see if I can actually reposition, because I've just found myself a little rut. Let me see if I can get out the rut. Actually get the vehicle a little bit higher. That's better. So of course this light is the best light for photography. The golden hour, last hour of the day and the first hour of the day. Look at that. So I think I did just sneak in the answer there before your question came through. See, great minds think alike. But the smell does come from the oil, and it's thought that oil actually taints the meat, but it's not really the case. Animals, I have seen lions eating waterbuck, because there was a bit of a bush myth that animals would not eat the waterbuck because of it. But you do have to be careful, I think, if you do prepare waterbuck, apparently, because if you do run the knife through the gland, then it can taint the meat. But as I say, I have seen other animals eating waterbuck. Good point, JM. Yeah, you very rarely see the oxpecker on the waterbuck, and it could well be because of the oily hair. That could be a good call, because they do certainly have thick enough fur that the oxpeckers possibly would find ticks. Maybe the oil actually helps to reduce the tick numbers. It'd be quite interesting to find out. Maybe I don't think anyone would have done anything on that. It might be worth having a search, see if we can find anything about that. But yeah, a really good observation there. Really well done with that one. Because you don't. I mean, generally speaking, the oxpeckers will go on most herbivores. They won't settle on carnivores for obvious reasons. Carnivores might decide that they want to snack on them. Oh, we got some young bulls joining us. They're just crossing the road behind us. There we go. You can see the horns aren't as impressive as the big bulls that we've just seen. Absolutely beautiful. And I think the sun is going to be setting in the next 10-15 minutes or so. Look at that. Probably still a little bit high to watch it go down properly. Hi, Sumat, I think I've got your name right, I hope. Asking if the waterbuck's horns are brittle. No, they're very strong, and especially with the bulls of any of the species, they tend to be thicker at the base and usually shorter than that of the female, because they need to be a lot more robust, because they do use them for fighting. Now, if you get antelope where the females do have horns, now in waterbuck the females don't, but in antelope where the females do have horns, as I say, they tend to be more slender, longer, because they don't tend to use them for fighting, they're more for defence. And I'm actually trying to think, I did find quite an interesting paper about someone who's actually tested the strength of horns. I'll have to try and dig that out and see if I can do a bit more reading about it, because it was going into all the details, the dynamics of it all. But certainly the base is where it's really important, and that's why it's just so thick compared to the females. So the bone, it's actually a bony core, and then it has keratin, so the fingernail substance and hair actually covering that bony interior. So definitely quite a strong substance, that. So I think Tristan's got something he wants to show you. I don't think it's quite the cats, but maybe it'll be something just as interesting.
It is indeed, Tara. Well, it's a nice sign at least, so everybody thinks that I'm not completely mad and just following around imaginary footprints all afternoon. But this is the tracks for the Nkuhuma Pride, and as we go out, you'll see the beautiful golden light that is showing you the tracks on both sides of the road. So you'll see it's just a mass of footprints on either side as they go, and they've come from that western horizon where there's a beautiful sunset. Now, unfortunately, I'm probably a little frustrated at things at the moment because there were lions that were found on Torchwood this morning, which I very nicely asked a few times whether or not those are the Nkuhuma Pride, because the tracks are heading that direction and I was told many times that they're not. It now turns out that they most definitely are, because these tracks that I'm with are about to cross onto Torchwood right in the direction of where those lions were found. So the Nkuhuma Pride, unfortunately for us, is in Torchwood. But the reason why we know these are lions, other than the fact that there are so many tracks here, is the following reasons. Now, it would be very similar size of a big male leopard, maybe slightly smaller if we had to look at these tracks, so I'll just circle one of them so that we can see. Now, if I put my hand next to it, a male leopard would probably be slightly smaller, and the toe area definitely wouldn't be as enlarged as what we see here. These toes are very big. You can see when I put my fingers there how big the toes are and how the soft sand is splayed out as the toes have come down. So these are most definitely from a lioness. That, coupled with the fact that there's so many tracks here, would indicate are not going to be as nice. But we also know that no claws in front and the 3 lobes at the back, most definitely lion and not hyena. That now changes my plans somewhat. I'm not 100% sure where I'm actually going to go now, because I was very hopeful that these lions were not going to be on Torchwood, but as it turns out, that has happened. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to go along the Buffelshoek cut line and hope for some miracle of Mvula popping out back from Buffelshoek where he crossed yesterday, or you never know, maybe Tundi and Tingana gets up and come back our way across Triple M. That's what I'm going to hope for this evening. But like I say, slightly frustrating because these tracks have gone, and I would have checked here this morning already had I thought that they had come this far, but I didn't realize that they had walked as quickly as they had, and I suppose it's my own fault for not checking and rather trusting others that they are not the same lions. But it's amazing how far these Nkuhumas can walk, because if you think yesterday they were seen on Arathusa, and by this morning, fairly sort of early in the morning, they were found on Torchwood already. So they've crossed the whole of Djuma during the night, and it just shows that when they're on a walk and when they want to go somewhere, they certainly don't waste any time whatsoever. So you can see they've just gone straight across here. This is Cheetah cut line, so this is the cut line with Torchwood, and across there, and then they've gone down slightly towards 2 big rocks, one known as First Rock and the other one known as Second Rock, and it's where the Birminghams came from the other day when Tara got them, the 2 Birmingham boys. That's exactly the same area that those lionesses and cubs are at the moment. So it sounds like apparently all 5 are there with the 6 cubs, so that's good news as well. At least they're all good, and they're apparently all looking very healthy, so that's also happy days. So glad that the Nkuhumas at least are looking good, and now hopefully tomorrow they'll turn around and they'll come back into this area and not just push straight north into Buffelshoek. It would be really nice if they decided to actually come back onto Djuma and spend some time around Buffelshoek Dam. We'll keep an ear out. Maybe this evening they'll get up and move, but I don't think so. It's still a little bit too light for them to be up and moving just yet, and given the distance that they covered over the last little bit, or last night, I doubt that they are going to move any further just yet. I reckon they're going to wait until that sun goes right down. It's also a full moon period, and there's going to be a period just after sunset, between sunset and that moonrise, that is going to be a good time for them to hunt. Once that moon gets up, unfortunately for them, it's going to become very bright and therefore a lot more difficult to hunt. But what is quite pleasant is that picture right there. So it was quite pretty when I had a few impalas sitting there with the sunset in the background. They were all kind of backlit by that sun, but they've all run off, unfortunately. You might have heard them rustling through the bushes, and maybe they've smelt those lions on the road, and that's why they're a little bit on the shy side. But that is a very pretty view to finish our day. So there we go. Now, Leopard Lover, you're asking, isn't it strange that the buffaloes haven't returned to Djuma, or the herds at least haven't returned to Djuma as yet? Well, yes. I mean, we're all at a bit of a loss as to why exactly there are no buffalo around at the moment. Yeah, the drought undoubtedly had a major impact on the buffalo numbers. I don't think anyone has actually recorded just how many buffalo died during last year's drought. It also is because of the distribution of rain during the summer. There was a lot more rain that fell both south and north of us, and so I'd imagine a large portion of the buffalo are down on those two areas, as well as the river systems where they're still able to get water. Remember that a lot of the water here is dried up and there's not that many water holes, and so it will only house a few bulls here and there, but the big herds most definitely are still being seen on the big rivers to the north and south of us. So the Olifants, the Thamba River north of us, even up into the Limpopo, and then in the south on the Sand and the Sabi River, quite a few herds being seen down there. Other than that, I have no idea why we wouldn't have seen at least a transition of some of those herds from Manyeleti down to us. I would have expected us to have seen maybe one or two crossing. We haven't really even had any tracks, so I'm not 100% sure why they're avoiding this area so much. Maybe last year is still etched into their memory and they know that this is not a safe place, because most of the buffalo that came through here unfortunately would have been chased and many were killed by a lot of the lions. And we know that the Nkuhumas had a fantastic time. The Avoca males, when they first came into the Sabi Sands, they managed to kill 7 buffalo in a night. So there was an absolute massacre of buffalo in this area, and maybe that's just led to a lot of these animals being a little bit nervous of coming down this area, and they've stuck more to other areas this year where there's a bit more water and maybe better grazing. You never know. Maybe this area last year had better grazing than some of those other places, and it was exhausted, and now they're going to make their way to areas where there's still better grazing than what we have here. Now, on top of a termite mound over there, Craig, I think just on top there, you should be able to find it. Looks like one of the Korhaans or bustards. Nope, that one there, yeah. There it is, sitting proudly on top of its mound, and it's going to start calling. Now, it's got a bit of bill clapping that's going on, so when they do that, it's typically a sign that they are going to make a bit more noise. So let's see if it will. It's a red-crested Korhaan is what it is, I think. I can't see 100%. Let me have a look with my binoculars, actually. Now, this is very typical of male Korhaans and bustards. They like to get up onto termite mounds where they'll make a little bit of noise. And I'm just, like I say, looking through my binos just to get 100% confirmation on as to whether it's the black-bellied bustard or the red-crested Korhaan. But it looks to me like a black-bellied bustard. It's got that black line that is sitting just underneath the beak, and so they have a slightly different call to the red-crested Korhaan. No, it is the red-crested Korhaan now that it's calling. It does have a bit of black under its beak, which is fairly odd. Most of the time, black-bellied bustards will have that black stripe that comes down from the beak down to the chest, whereas red-crested Korhaans don't really have that, which I'll show you now in the book. And this guy does have it, so he's a bit of an anomaly when it comes to the Korhaans, but that call that was just made is most definitely the call of a red-crested Korhaan and not the black-bellied bustard. The black-bellied bustard has that champagne cork popping sound that you get. So this is what we're looking at the moment. Like I said, that black-bellied bustard there's normally got the black that comes down into the neck, and the red-crested Korhaan doesn't have that. But this particular bird is just called like a red-crested Korhaan, so I can't see nicely with my binos at the moment, but it looks like it is that one. So there we go. He's very well camouflaged up there, and he's a lot further away than it looks. He's quite far. Maybe some of you got screenshots and we'll be able to get a better idea. In fact, I'm going to just try from a little bit further forward where I'll be able to see his neck a bit better. Maybe from here, Craig, if I go back slightly. In that gap there. What do we get? Let's see if we can see through. Come on, show us your neck properly. Stick your neck up. It's amazing the camouflage that they have. Now, it seems as though he's just behind some foliage. I'm going to try to go a little bit forward, Craig, because otherwise you're going to have a situation where you've got a little bit of foliage in front. Just say when. How's that? Is that better? There we go. He's all fluffed up, which is making it a little bit harder, but it does look like a red-crested crawn. Like I say, the call is of a red-crested crawn, so it must be. But you are looking very dapper up there, gentlemen. You're looking as though you're going to attract yourself a female, so best of luck. And hopefully he'll be successful. Like I say, they use these termite mounds to show themselves off. That bright black contrasting against the lightness of the mound is a good tactic to be able to attract females, and then they'll do that suicidal dive when the females are around. They'll fly up into the air and then bomb down to the ground. Wings will open at the last second, and it's all very dramatic, but it seems to work for the ladies, so that's what he'll probably try and do a little bit later. Right, and now the long journey along Buffelshoek boundary, and to see what we can find. Hopefully we'll get something exciting for our efforts this afternoon, and there will be some little cat somewhere, or even not a cat. Maybe a herd of ellies would also go down quite a treat in the sunset. But while I contemplate what we're going to find and where we're going to find it, let's go across to James, who's got, well, a feathered friend contemplating where it's going to find its next meal.
There is our poor and hopeless heron, still without a meal for the evening. I haven't watching him the whole night, but I have tried to keep my eye on him, and I don't think he's caught anything. Anyway, there he is. Before I leave you this time, though, I would like to go, we'll leave him, watch him for a few seconds, but my very favourite crossing at this time of the day is the Dusty crossing, and so when convenient I think we should go across there. The Dusty crossing, please, the Dusty crossing. And there it is, and I'll tell you why it's my favourite. It's because all the hippos are still in the water there, and the martins and swallows are flying down, swooping onto the water, taking their last insects, and you can see how very subtle the light is at this time of the day. Isn't it lovely? And there was just briefly, recently, a pinkish glow on it from the setting sun, and I always like to, if I'm sitting in this room, I always turn the camera this direction and I look down the river. And I think after that rather harrowing experience of watching the wildebeest crossing up north around the Chitwa area today, I think this is exactly the kind of peace that an evening requires, don't you? Oh dear, there's a topi. Don't go in there. The topi here have been feeding the crocodile, everybody. Look at them. Watching the beastly croc fly, and I know I say beastly croc a lot, and some of you get a little upset with me because you love crocs, and so you should, because they're very important. But they really are very good at catching topi, and topi are particularly poor at getting away from them. I almost missed this. I mean, this looks like it might develop into a crossing. I don't think it will, because this crocodile is clearly not born of an enormous intelligence. This is obvious from the fact that he's sitting right exactly where they might think about getting into the water. And one is again drawn to that, what did we call it, a Facebook cartoon, if you like, that I've seen many times, and I'm sure many of you would have, with the gnu tapping the log saying, log, croc, log, croc, and it was a crocodile, and the gnu gets eaten. And then the next one does exactly the same thing. So I think the animals here do take a little while to learn, because I think if they learned a little bit faster than they do, I think you'll find that the crocodiles wouldn't eat them quite as often, and the crocodiles would need to develop slightly more, shall we say, sophisticated strategies. One lonely wildebeest that looks like he's thinking of charging the crocodile. No, no. All right, I'm going to wait and see if these chaps don't cross, because I think there might be a whole lot more wildebeest behind that. We'll wait and see what happens. In the meantime, I believe that there is a parlour going on somewhere at Djuma.
Hi everybody. Well, we were trying to find a nice place to watch the sun go down, but then we saw this family of dwarf mongoose enjoying the last rays of the sun, enjoying the heat from the termite mound. It would have warmed up during the day. And we also had some yellow-billed hornbills who were getting the last morsels of food. They're actually still here. They're just to the left in the tree. But some of you may have heard us talking about the relationship that the hornbills and dwarf mongoose sometimes make. And here we are. We actually have it happening right in front of us. So there is a dwarf mongoose slowly making its way back to the rest of the family. So it's known as a mutualistic relationship because the dwarf mongoose have the benefit of extra eyes that are often sat higher than they can be in trees, and then the hornbills benefit because if there's anything that runs away from the dwarf mongoose insect wise, then they get to eat it. And look at that. Very important, having a bath before they go to bed. You see everyone partaking. Look at that. That is just one of my favourite sights. And it helps to strengthen the bonds between the family. The bird calling behind us. Hashtag Safari Live, YouTube. If you could hear the bird that was calling just behind us. There's actually a very cute little bird to the left in the tree. Golden-breasted bunting, I don't know. Oh, it's just flown off. So sometimes you'll actually find the hornbills waiting by the termite mound where the dwarf mongoose are sleeping in, waiting for them to wake up, and vice versa. Sometimes you'll see the dwarf mongoose waiting for the hornbills to arrive so they can go out and forage together. And it looks like that could be the case. So now they've now the mongoose have been bathing. The hornbills have decided now's a good time to preen as well, so they're partaking in the preening and cleaning of their feathers. Hi, Kristen, asking what a bunch of mongoose are called. Believe it or not, it's called a business. A business of mongoose. And they do look like they're up to business at the moment. Or getting down to the business of getting clean. Now, has anyone come back with our bird call, I wonder? Hashtag Safari Live, YouTube, if you'd like to answer that question. Because remember, we are live. Believe it or not, from the middle of the African bush, the South African bush, and also from the Mara, which is absolutely fantastic. Bringing you the wildlife from 2 countries on this vast continent. Really, really quite something. So, I think we've got another feathered friend that Tristan has managed to spot. So see if you have any luck identifying that bird.
I've found a predator. One of our smallest ones that we have out here, a little pearl spotted owlet, and I'm sure Byron will be super happy when he sees this because Byron loves pearl spotted owlets and always makes me think of him when I see them. But look at that camouflage, isn't that an incredible way to blend in? was actually sitting on a different tree, but if you look at it from far, you wouldn't know there really is an owl there if you drove past quickly, so you have to keep your eye out for them. They are absolutely tiny. You can see in relation to some of the bush willow leaves, which I'll pick just now so I can show you just how big a bush willow leaf is, and that will give you an idea of how big our pearl-spotted owlet is. I'm hoping that it does turn its head slightly because it's going to show its false eyes that it's got, and I love these birds because they have these big black circles on the back of their head, which indicates to other predators that might hunt it that it's almost as though it's being watched by this bird, and so it's a false set to deter predators and to stop being hunted from behind, which I think is very clever and a very cool little pattern to have. I was actually reading a very interesting article, and now with the dark eyes pattern on the back, I was reading an article today about bird coloration and pigments and how they were doing a study as to whether it's formed by melanin or if there are other parts or other cells that be able to form the colors that we see on birds. And it worked out that basically 37% of birds produce their color through melanin, and the melanin is actually the general coloration, so that will be, you know, darks, browns, blacks, those kind of things, and the actual detailed pattern is formed by a different cell, which I will get the name shortly. I did save it so that I would be able to remember the name because it is quite a long one and it sounds very scientific. And they are called, where is it now? Carotenoids, apparently. And the carotenoids are responsible for the fine detail on these birds. So the things like the eyes with the little white around them, that would all be formed by those cells that are able to basically form these beautiful colors that we see and these patterns that are so intricate on birds, which was very interesting. Now, the other thing that Tara has been talking about, I remember yesterday she was talking about it, was the flight of birds and how birds fly. And for me, owls and the way that they fly and the structures that they have to be able to be as silent as they are is absolutely fascinating. There was a video that went around for a while of different birds in flight and the sound waves that they produce, and the owl is basically a flat sound wave, and the reason it is like that is because their feathers, unlike others, have fluted structure to it, and so when they fly they actually are able to disturb the air slightly that it doesn't cause any sound whatsoever. It's really an amazing thing to watch, and that video, if you can find it on the internet somewhere, will be worth all of you watching as these birds fly and the incredible sound that they make. So they use doves and varying other birds, and then they fly an owl, and the owl is absolutely silent. It is such an incredible thing to watch, and that's why they're so deadly at night when they're hunting. Unfortunately, he moves his head every now and then, but we haven't had a great look at the spots just yet. I'm pretty sure he will at some point, or she, should I say. It's difficult to sex a pearl-spotted owlet. And you can see where the name pearl-spotted owlet comes from. If you look on the wings there, there's little white spots, and there those black eyes are on the back. You can see now as it turns its head. Oh, and there it goes. Well, that was very pleasant. Now, what I wanted to show you is, we saw just now the leaf in relation to the bird itself in the background. Now, Craig, sorry, I'm going to park you in here a little bit while I pick a leaf. But there we go. If we have a look, sorry, my hands are very dirty because Wendy's steering wheel is a bit dirty, but that is the size of the leaf in my hand. So you would find that the owl we saw just now was not much bigger. That owl would probably be about that size in my hand, which is really very cool indeed. Right, so a little bit of luck, at least. It's not a cat, but still as fascinating and as awesome to see as any of the cats are, and it's got spots on it too, so we'll take it for sure. Right, Craig, let's see what else we can find on Buffels hook cutline. And well, it seems as though Scott, who's just joined us in the Mara, is now going to chime in with some spots of his own.
Hello everyone, good to have you with me. My name's Scott. I'm teamed up with Jandre on camera, and we have got a treat for you. There, as you can see, is a setting sun, and there is one of 5 male cheetahs, and we're going to get some incredible views of them silhouetted against this wonderful sunset. We've literally just come across them just in the nick of time. We were thankfully helped by one of the cheetah researchers who spotted them from a long way off, and just in the nick of time, before the sun sets, we've found you these wonderful cheetah. Look at this. And the fact that there are 5 of them just makes this moment that much more special. They're quite well fed, so I think they're just checking their territory, which seems to be a very large one. Each time we see them, it's in a new area. And this is just absolutely magical. Whew, well, what a relief. There was a mad panic that we had got into this area a little bit late today. It's been a busy day, and I'm just going to reposition again quickly. And we were worried we weren't going to find these guys. We're planning on spending the night with them so that we can wake up first thing in the morning and make sure we get you guys as much action as possible from them. So imagine spending the whole night out here with no cheetah. That wouldn't be much fun. So just in time for us, thankfully. We got lucky. Okay, I think this might be another good spot to wait. There goes the cheetah researcher, Eleanor, who I'm sure you guys will meet at some time. Hello, R. Beard. You are very impressed with Gendre's fancy camera work as well as his subjects and are suggesting we put one of these cheetah sunset silhouette shots into the show reel. I couldn't agree more, and I don't think Gendre would either. This is too good. Seems like the other two are going to pop a little bit down in the foreground. The first two couldn't have done a better job giving us some wonderful views with that red oat grass in the background. Well, from having no cheetahs to having this, I think it's fair to say luck was hugely on our side this evening. Wunderbar. Now let's take another closer look at them as they head in front of the vehicle. You'll notice that they do have quite full bellies, so that's something to take note of. What have you seen?
Tommy running behind.
Oh, well done. Gendre says there's a Thompson's gazelle behind us. And I'm sure with their full bellies, they're probably not going to be too interested in a Thompson's gazelle. These 5 boys, if you haven't met them before, tend to focus on hunting wildebeest, and they're quite specialized regarding cheetah. Because there's 5 of them, they can manage to bring down fully grown wildebeest, which is quite some task, even for 5 cheetah. Quite risky business, but you could almost relate this coalition of 5 male cheetah to a coalition of 5 male lion that bring down buffalo and large prey such as that. These guys are just a slightly lighter weight version thereof. So a cheetah wildebeest is kind of equivalent to a buffalo lion showdown. Hello to, I think it's Tiny. You've had a very interesting comment in that you said, Tony, that it reminds you of the Lion King, or except that there are loads of cheetahs and therefore it is the Cheetah King. And I think this is, especially with that sunset, some worthy footage to put forward to Disney for what surely should be made the Cheetah King movie. Well, cheetah are not good climbers, and this tree looks a bit too vertical for them to try and hop up. A friend of mine was guiding some of his guests through the Mara the other day, and he was lucky enough to bump into these 5, and he got some beautiful photos of, I think, 3 of them up a fig tree all at once. But this tree is a little bit too tricky for them to climb. If they've got more of a kind of 45-degree angled trunk, the cheetah can sometimes have a go. Hello Jackie, you would like to know if these cheetah will fight over kills, and from what we've seen there isn't too much fighting. There's a little bit of growling and hissing, but not much fighting so far. I think if they were to catch something small though, which we haven't seen them catch yet, and they were very hungry, then yes, I think a dominance hierarchy would certainly kick in, and it will certainly kick in when there's a female around. So even though the 5 of them are working as a team, there will be times when only one of them can be the boss. Now what's interesting is that the last time I drove through these plains they were full with wildebeest, and it feels like there's not too many around now, not too much prey. Having said that though, there's a whole bunch, mainly zebra, in the distance in the direction they're going, so there is a little bit of prey there. But it's really interesting to notice how the large herds of wildebeest fluctuate in their movements so greatly. I think some of you got lucky with Jamie and some crossing action this afternoon at a crossing point that literally only started getting... Oh, there goes some Thompson's gazelle. They've made a good move getting out of town. And... ooh, that's a Grant's gazelle. That's a little bit chunkier than a Thompson's gazelle. Maybe that might catch their attention. Let's go and see. We don't want to be left in a cloud of dust. Thanks, Eleanor. She's a wonderful lady. We haven't spent much time with her, but she's really, really interesting. And she spends as much time as she possibly can with these cheetah. And what she's doing is she's got a massive microphone that she's recording all of their interesting audio sounds and communicatory sounds that they have between one another, and she's trying to work out what it is they're saying to one another. So she's a wonderful person to know out here, and she's gonna be able to provide us with a lot of information. We've just been quite chaotic. Every time we bump into her, we're like rushing the opposite way or trying to get some good shots, so we haven't pinned her down and gleaned as much info as we can off her, but it certainly will be something we do in the future, or as soon as time allows. What are they going to do next? The Grant's gazelle that was here has disappeared.
Now, unfortunately, we had a few gremlin issues, which has meant that, unfortunately, we're back in Djuma. Not unfortunately, actually, because we have a beautiful zebra stallion that is crossing over the road. And isn't that a pretty view as the rolling road goes and the zebra crosses over? Very pretty indeed. And the setting sun in the background. Now, unfortunately, as with the rest of the animals today, our zebras are crossing into Buffel's Hook. So the rest of them have all gone off our boundaries as well. So we'll have to try and see if we can't find something going in the opposite direction. We need things to start coming this way across this road. I wonder if we can get a view of this. Hold on, Craig. This might be quite cool. Because the rest of the zebras that have already crossed over... maybe over here. It's not going to be great because there's going to be lots of foliage in the way, but there is a zebra that has decided it's going to climb its very own termite mound. So you'll find this quite commonly with zebras, is they like to go up termite mounds. They feed a lot off the grass on termite mounds, much like buffalo would do, kudu, impalas. You see a lot of them doing it. The reason is because that food is far more nutritious. The termites, when they build this mound, are mixing saliva with their feces and soil particles, and that feces acts as a compost basically, and as they mix it all together, so that plant life then starts to grow, and it's very nutrient rich in comparison to the rest of the plants in the area, and so that's why they go up there to eat off it. The other plus side of a zebra being on top of a mound is that it can see for quite a long way, so it'll be able to see if there's any signs of predators potentially in this area. And that's the stallion right at the back, so he waited for his whole herd to go before he went, and he's just checking up on us as we're sitting here. At least they decided to stay and didn't just go away from us straight away. It's quite pleasant. Craig, I'm going to go forward a little bit for you. I just want to see if we can't get a better view on the stallion nicely out in the open, like that there. That should be better. That's much better. We don't have too many branches now in front of him. What are you doing with your lip? We have a smiling zebra. There we go. Isn't this funny? What are you doing with your lip? I wonder if he hasn't smelt something there where a female maybe urinated and it's almost part of his phlegm and grimace that he hasn't got quite right, but it's definitely giving us a little toothy grin to end our day. Now, Chitty Chatty Meg, you're asking if I've ever seen a skinny zebra because they always look so fat and healthy. There we go, there's a phlegm and grimace. As he lifts his head up, and you see back down to the ground again. And I wonder if Tingana was doing this morning with Tara. I heard that he was sniffing around, but I wonder if he was also displaying a phlegm and grimace at any point. Now, Chitty Chatty Meg, in terms of skinny zebras, oh, there he goes again. I don't know what's wrong with our zebra, but no, not really. If you see, I have seen skinny zebras, but their stomach will always have some roundness to it, and the reason for that is because of the stomach structure that they have. They're a hindgut fermenter, which means they basically have a massive vat that breaks down the food that they eat, and the byproduct of that is actually a lot of gas. So zebras do bloat quite heavily, and even if they're skinny, you will find a bit of bloating. And last year when we had the drought, the zebras, some of them actually did look quite skinny. You could see the hip bones protruding off the skin and varying other parts of their body that you could see the ribs a little bit, but the stomach itself always stays fat, and that's just because of the nature of their digestive system. But this is the most entertaining male zebra ever. I'm loving the way that he keeps smiling. Big yawn. Has it been a tough day today, buddy? There we go. He's decided that's enough of that. Enough smiling for the camera. It's now time to wander off. Very cool. Right, onward we go. Thank you, zebras. That was very kind of you. We've been spoilt though. I know today we've been following lion tracks, and you always get despondent when you don't find a cat, and it's more because I get despondent for all of you. I feel like we invest so much time in tracking and that it becomes a massive part of the drive, and that we don't focus on a lot of other things that are happening because we're trying to track. And I always feel bad when we commit to it and then don't find any of the animals for you. So sometimes you feel a little bit negative about the fact that you've tracked and you haven't found the animal, but we have seen some amazingly cool stuff today, and I've had an actually thoroughly good day. I haven't seen really any major sightings. I did have actually short trunk herd this morning, but other than that I've had lots of antelope species, and there's been the odd bird here and there, and it's been a thoroughly enjoyable day out in the bush. It's also fairly warm. As you can see, I'm still in a shirt. I have a little vest fleece on, but otherwise it's actually not that cold. I remember before I went on leave at this time of the evening we were really wrapping up tight and making sure that we were nice and warm, and now it's actually not too bad. Now I'm going to go through an area with gremlins, so I do apologize if there's a bit of breakup. I am sorry. It's off.
Hello everybody. Well, we've done loops. I'm still trying to see if we can find that mating pair of leopards, but unfortunately haven't really found any sign of their tracks or anything like that. So we're making our way onto quarantine, just because, as I say, Tingana was actually missioning, so it'd be nice to actually see if he is around. Now it is starting to get a little bit dark, so I'm going to see if we can start using the spotlight to maybe look for any eyes. But I do wonder if anyone did get our bird. Otherwise I will let you know who I heard behind us when we're at the Dwarf Mongoose. Doesn't sound like, maybe the bird was just that little bit too faint, but it was a red crested Korhaan, so I think Tristan was giving you a bit of information about one earlier. But I feel Tristan's pain. There are days that you do a lot of tracking and unfortunately you just can't get to the animal, and it can be very frustrating. But then there are other days when you do the tracking and you get the animal at the end, and that is just so rewarding. So I feel your pain, Tristan. I really do. Do we have any eyes? Nobody. Is that my favourite bird I'm hearing? Oh, I think he's flown off. I think it is though. I can hear the little rattle of the fork-tailed drongo. So it is still quite a nice temperature. It did drop, but now the warmth from the road and the termite mounds, it's just warm enough at the moment, but I'm sure it will drop again in temperature. Oh, a little bat. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it on your screen. Possibly a little African pipistrelle. Project Alpha. No, I haven't. Project Alpha, wanting to know if I've ever seen a striped weasel. That is something I would love to see. Or a striped polecat, otherwise known as a zarilla. So it sounds like there's another vehicle that's got the same idea as me. Just doing another sweep around here. So I think we'll go to that little pan just behind Voyatella Lodge and maybe end up at the dam if we have time. But yes, that would be amazing to see. Now the weasel does tend to go for, I believe, the open grasslands. So if it was here, this would be the place to see it. And again, the zarilla, you don't see very often either, but it's one of those that is believed to be throughout South Africa. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same story as the leopard, because it's so difficult to find any sign of. I've never caught it on my camera traps either, which is quite amazing. We catch most things on the camera trap, but not those animals. So taking Galago shortcut, going north, and we'll try that little pan. I've got high hopes for that little pan. It has done us proud in the past. So you never know. Looking out for any owls now. Any jackal. Or even any caracal. That would be lovely to see as well. So here we go. Oh! Apparently there has been a caracal seen on Cheetah Plains. Oh, that's really nice. The caracal, it stands about, sort of from the dashboard, it stands about that height. I've been lucky enough to see caracal a couple of times, but it's one of those special creatures that sometimes you can work for many years in the bush and still not see a caracal. They are quite secretive, but they're also extremely good bird hunters. They can launch themselves into the sky after birds, so they really are quite specialist hunters in that regard. It's a little bit quiet around here. I was hoping maybe to find some impala or something like that that can maybe give us an alarm call if there's anything around. Of course, the baboons and the monkeys have all gone to bed. So the baboons roost up in the trees, as do the vervet monkeys. So they are like us, they go to bed at night. And off the ground, out the way, or out the reach of predators. Oh, who was that? Was that an owl? Someone just flew off. Let's see where it landed though. So there's some people asking for the papers that I mentioned, and I will give the links to the ladies in FC so they can put them on a blog for you. And the leopard one in particular was by Jacobson et al. So there was quite a few contributors to that paper, and that was in 2016. So that was the one about the range of the leopard actually decreasing a lot more than what was thought. But I believe Tristan has his spotlight working. Hey, that's good news. So hopefully Tristan will be able to spot something for you in the last few minutes of our live game drive this evening.
I do have my spotlight working, but I, to be honest, haven't plugged it in yet. It's not quite dark enough for the spotlight just yet. I feel like I can still see a little bit, and I was just coming to check the dam anyway, so didn't really need the spotlight for the dam given the amount of lights that are here already. So I shall plug it in just now, I think, on my way from here, although it seems as though it might be a bit futile from the dam to the lodge itself. But worth always coming to Gari Dam at this time of the day. It's the perfect time of day for cats to come and drink. And it's always worth checking. And Shongile, we know, was around this morning. And look at that. Look at the colours in the sky this evening. Isn't that beautiful? The water reflecting those pinks and yellows and oranges. It's a wonderful way to finish one's day. And where the lodge is actually very pretty. You can imagine lots of guests have enjoyed many a time on those decks as they look over the Gari Dam. Isn't that pretty? I think so. Nothing like some Egyptian geese to break the very sort of pretty ambient sounds and the quiet, peaceful sunset. Oh, we've got a fight going on. Look at this, isn't this amazing? So we're just going into IR quickly so we can watch them fight. But you can see how it's both male and female are fighting for this area. Look how they've latched onto one another. Isn't this incredible? Oh, into the water they go. They can be glad this is not the Mara River, because that would have certainly attracted a few crocodiles, which would have caused one of these Egyptian geese to probably be no longer. That was absolutely amazing. Wow. There we go. A bit of action to finish off our afternoon. It's been an absolutely fantastic day. Not only do we have an exquisite sunset behind us, but Scott had his cheetahs and Tara with mating leopards and all the crossings that we've had. It's been absolutely incredible. And talking about our cheetah, I think Scott's going to close everything up with the last few moments with the cheetah.
Well, we've managed to get into a better signal area, and we're going to show you one last view of these magnificent animals. I hope you've enjoyed your sunset safari. Jandre and I certainly haven't contributed a whole lot, but we feel like our contribution has been a good one right at the end. And we hope you guys have had a wonderful safari. This is certainly a great way to be ending off your evening. This is one of the smaller ones. He's probably a little bit younger than the larger ones, I'm guessing, or maybe just genetically a little bit smaller. They're all slightly different. We hope you have a wonderful day, night or morning, wherever in the world you are, and we'll see you on the next safari.